name's Jane Moore, and I'm with the Martinez Oral History Project, and I'm here with John Walsh in his home in Martinez. John, thank you so much for joining us for a second interview. The Oral History group felt that you had so much information more to add to your life story and the history of Martinez that we wanted to speak with you again. So thank you so much for welcoming us into your home. I'd like to begin, just if you could give us a little bit of your biography, your name, when you were born, and your parents, and your names and where they came from. We'll start that way.
Yeah, my name is John Walsh, and I was born in Berkeley in 1923, and we moved to Martinez in 1927. My father came from Ireland, and my mother came from Ireland. And my mother died when I was 3 years old. And I had two sisters and a brother, a twin brother, and they both passed away before my mother died. So when we landed in Martinez, it was just my brother, my father, and myself.
And what brought you to Martinez?
My dad was looking for work, and he got a job at the Shell Oil. In those days, there were Irish people were hard workers, but it was hard to find work. The only jobs he could get be rolling barrels out of the Shell Oil, where they load them onto trucks to haul away. My dad had come home with big blisters on his hand from rolling those barrels, but he never mind. He stayed with it until the Depression got pretty severe. I think it was in 29 he was laid off.
Oh, from Shell.
From Shell.
In 1929. So what did he move? What did he go on to do then?
Well, he worked for the PWA. He was a foreman building sidewalks in Martinez, and he worked all around different areas in Martinez. They only worked so many days. I think it was maybe half a month a year. And he had to try to support us until the Depression kind of let up, and he got a job delivering bread for the Martinez Bread Company, and that was I'm not sure what year it was, in the 30s, but he would deliver bread door to door from Martinez to Pittsburgh and Antioch and Danville in that area.
And then did he own his own bakery also? Did he start his own bakery, or was that the bakery
what happened, the baker got his arm burnt by falling into he was making donuts, and when his arm got burnt, Mr. Hilson owned the bakery. It was at the corner of Castro and Susanna. And so my dad had to take over the bakery or be out of a job. So he did take it over and managed it for several years until they moved the old post office that used to be on Castro Street, and that was where people would pick up the mail and pick up the bread. If you left the door open, they could smell that good bakery smell, and they'd come in for bread always. But after they moved, the bakery business went downhill. And a lot of the big bakery companies were building, like Langendorf, and those companies were building different pastries and things. And Pardini was one of the few that survived that spell. And Fred would make pastries, and that's what my dad's bakers didn't know how to do.
Oh, so your dad was strictly a bread bakery.
Strictly bread, and just managing mostly.
Okay, and it was located where the old post office. It was next door to that in the Hilson building.
Well, yeah, it was the Hilson owned the building. It was right on the corner of Ward and Castro.
Okay.
And he had 3 trucks that he was operating when he was getting going, and then when my brother got shot in 1937, he was out hunting with Jim Denio, a good friend of ours, and it blew his arm off. And so my dad had to make all the payments that cost him the bakery. Then he was out of work again, that's when they had to go to work for the WPA.
Well, so he was at the WPA, then he had the bakery, then he went back to the WPA after after he lost the managing the bakery.
Well,
Or,
I think it was after he lost
mm-hmm.
the bakery, he went to work for the WPA
Mm-hmm.
because you couldn't find a job anywhere. It was very hard for people like him, who was foreigners. They didn't realize he'd gone to college in Ireland, and he was very competent with
Highly educated.
yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
writing and reading,
Mm-hmm.
but he was a good manager if he got a chance. But there wasn't many chances open in those days.
Yeah, and that was during the Depression, right?
It was,
Can you tell us what Martinez was like during the Depression years? It was a very difficult time period, and how did this community work together and help each other out?
well, Martinez people were very close, and when one person was out of work, the neighbors would help him. And a lot of the people, like my father, had a bakery, and he'd deliver bread, and the people couldn't pay for it, so they'd give him a chicken or something to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped for people that needed help because most people didn't have money. Money was the big problem. It was hard to get, and it was a way of helping each other. Martinez was such a small town. Everybody knew everybody. Like Mrs. Aiello, she knew everybody in the whole town that was Italian especially. And they were very helpful and kind to their parents, took care of their parents when they were in need of help. But today everybody sends their parents to a rest home,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have a family daughter that is defended or responsible as Mrs. Aiello was.
Mm-hmm. And the Italian fishermen, did they provide I mean, that was a large community group. How did they help out during that time?
The Italians were very helpful to the people out in the valley. They'd sell fish from their truck, and the people couldn't pay. They'd give them tomatoes or whatever they were growing, and that's the way they conducted business.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the currency to make the payments.
So everybody really traded whatever they had as a commodity used that for money. So the farmers had their tomatoes and their
Down here are good friends.
yeah, the neighbor who knows so much.
Yeah.
And you mentioned LaSalle's store. How did they help the community? What kind of store was that, and how did they help the community?
Well, there was no Sun Valley. LaSalle's was the Sun Valley. If you wanted to buy shotgun shells, you went there. If you wanted to buy a hamburger, you went there.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you wanted to buy whatever they sold, they had a complete list of products, including food and furniture and machinery. They had a way of dealing with customers. Martinez people lived here all their life, and they give them credit. And they had 2 delivery trucks that they used to deliver groceries to, and at the end of the month, they paid the bill, whatever the cost was to the LaSalle store. And Mr. LaSalle was a very kind man. He took everybody on this for their credit.
Mm-hmm.
They were related to the LaSalle's company that delivers to the water. There was another relative. They had a big lake out in Alhambra Valley, and they had a pipeline that came in all the way down to where the depot is in Martinez, and they loaded tank trucks up for people that needed water or shipped their water out, but their water was considered real good until they found out that the lead pipes were very hazardous, and they made them take all the old pipes out and put wooden pipes in.
Really? Wooden pipes?
Out by the Alhambra High School.
Uh-huh.
They had an area there that was just old wooden pipes that they put in. They had one fellow that was an expert on the water. His name was Ray, and Mr. Ray would know where every pipeline was in the whole county, and he could go, if they had a break or an order line, they'd call him, unless he was up at Reno having a party, but he would be the only one that really knew where all of the equipment was and could take care of it.
Or if there was a leak, he could come fix it.
If there was a leak, he
That's
could fix
amazing.
it.
And it came all the way from the valley down to where the train depot is.
Yes.
Wow.
There was right across the street from where the depot was, where that old train is parked now.
Right.
That's where the big LaSalle's water building was. They sold knee-high root beer, soda water out of that same building. One of the policemen was, when he worked at the city police, riding around in a patrol car during the day, and then in the afternoon he'd go work for Mr. LaSalle, delivering water.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a very interesting operation they had going there.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds
Yeah.
like it. So one brother had the water and one brother had the grocery store,
Yes.
and that really helped keep the whole town supplied with everything.
Apparently, there wasn't enough well water coming into Martinez until they did finally get the water. Well, put the well in out in Mountain View, where that water supply place brought the water in from then on. But at the time, the water wasn't polluted. The water was fairly with amount they could get.
So Martinez survived the Depression a lot by helping each other out, and how was it to be you were 12, 14 during that time period? What were you doing? Were you working? Were you helping out too?
I tried to find work wherever I could get it, and mostly was selling papers. We'd go down to the train depot and they'd drop you a bundle off with your name on it, and you'd pick your bundle up and go out and sell them. If you had a good day, you would buy more papers, and I think the papers were only a nickel, and we'd buy them for 2.5 cents, and then we'd make 2.5 cents when we sold a paper.
Did you have a regular place where you sold your papers?
Mine was mostly in the old courthouse when they were building a new one, and it was in the new Hall of Records, they called it, and I would hang out selling papers there. But when Sheriff Field was the sheriff, I'd go into the old office, which was the city hall with the big dome. I'd go in there and sell papers, go from door to door. I can't remember all of their names right away, but I knew most of the people that worked in there, and they allowed me in there because I never caused them any trouble. And they had another man down there who was in charge of the maintenance of the buildings. He called himself an engineer, but he was the head janitor. Is what he was. But he was a very interesting fella to talk to, and he always liked me, and he'd give me all the old books. I'd want to read them, and they'd supposed to destroy them. Or he was just a friendly person. I'd leave a paper on his desk every morning.
Nice.
And he'd do the whole Hall of Records with about 4 prisoners. They'd have to take care of the cleaning the buildings and cleaning everything. But I guess there was a getting away from the subject. But
who were some of your childhood friends growing up? Some people that you were close with, and how did they?
I stayed away from most of them, but the Walsh was the same name as ours, but we were no relation. But they were from not too far from my dad in Ireland.
Oh.
So I hung around with them. They'd give me a hand selling papers. Their father was the section foreman all the way from Crockett to up to the bridge. That time there was no bridge crossing, but they were building a new railroad.
Oh, so he worked for the railroad, section foreman for the railroad. And you were friends with Frank Pereira, is that
Yes,
right?
well, Frank Pereira and Eddie Pereira lived out in the valley with their
Right.
father, and they had a pretty good sized ranch out there. But they were awful good people to know because you could go hunting on their property with them. They had deer out there, and they had trout way in the back of their property that was very interesting to go there.
Is that where you hunted rabbits? You did a lot of.
I hunted rabbits over on the Avon side of the Martinez area. And, that area was between Martinez and Avon was the old finery.
Mm-hmm.
There was all open land, and there were a lot of game in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to hunt in that area in the swamp.
And you went in the swamp.
Well, it was kind of a halfway swamp.
Mm-hmm.
You would find a good spot to sit and put your decoys out if you had any. If not, go from one slough to the other and shoot wild ducks and jackrabbits.
And what did they call the rabbits? You
Jackrabbits.
right, but you had some the Hoover.
They call them the Hoover hogs because they were kidding about Hoover during the Depression. You know, people could afford to buy beef. They'd just shoot wild rabbits, so they called the rabbits Hoover hogs.
And that's how you were able to help your family get food on the table.
I'd sell the rabbits
Oh.
too. A lot of Italians come up and visit their relatives in Martinez, and I'd sell them rabbits at 50 cents a piece. And the shells only cost a dime, so I made a pretty good profit. I usually get one or two every day I'd go out.
Really?
Yeah.
So is that when you were supposed to be going to school, but you were putting food on the table and helping with the
Mostly
finances?
this was on the weekends.
Oh, on the weekends. Okay.
Yeah, or in the summer vacation, I'd get out there and shoot a few ducks or a few rabbits.
And you worked at the Benicia Arsenal when you were a teenager? Was that?
I did. I was. Everybody was working over there. I think I was going to high school. I would go to high school during the day and then work with the Arsenal at night.
What did you do?
Mostly loading ammunition onto the ships that would come into Benicia.
And how did you get over there?
Well, I used to be, when I could afford it, I had an old Model A Ford. I'd drive it over, but usually it cost more, so I'd just take the ferry boat and then walk from the bed down there all the way up to the ferry.
From the arsenal up to the ferry.
Yeah. Well, either way, if I couldn't get a ride, I'd manage to get over one way or another. But there wasn't no transportation. I would just park my car, leave it down at the old ferry slip, and take the.
If you drove, you had to go around.
Well, I had to pay for the bridge for my car and everything,
Right.
so it was cheaper just to walk all the way
Right.
up. It was only about a mile up to the.
And which bridge was it?
Well, the bridge would be mostly. I'd have to go to Crockett.
That's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So from Crockett, you have to go across there. That's quite a distance to drive and to have to pay the.
Well, I was trying to make it as economical
Sure.
as possible.
So you did that after school, and then you would work at night and come home?
Well, mostly when I go to school, time I did attend was on my own time, but after I'd go over there and work, after I got a job working at there. I think we paid 87 cents an hour those days to load ammunition, yeah.
And then you'd come home at night and get up and go to school in the morning?
Yeah.
Wow. And that was during high school?
Yes.
So that must have made it really difficult to study and get everything done that you needed to do.
And we had several of the teachers that were very good to me. They told me what to study for because I only needed one credit, and that was in history. And so I just, whenever we'd have a break over there, I'd take my book with me and read it, So I'd come back and fortunately, I was able to pass to get my diploma from Alhambra.
What year did you graduate?
42.
1942.
Yeah.
Wow. And one of your other childhood friends was Jimmy Denayo?
Well, Jim Denal lived up Mountain View. He was our neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his dad and his two brothers. We were very close. And so Jim was a little older than me, and I didn't really get to know him at that time because he was 3 years older.
Oh.
And I was good friends with his brother and his two brothers and the mother. And after the war was over, the one brother opened a little flea market, and I take back the one brother went to work for his older brother Jim, who opened the flea market up at Roseville.
Oh, okay.
And they kept growing and growing till it got to be a very big business. I think he had 65 acres just in parking in that flea market.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It's still going today.
He's still going today.
Yeah,
So
very
he came from
successful.
very modest background.
No formal education.
Huh.
I think their father died and their mother wasn't able to work. So my dad and them were very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim, when he opened that flea market, him and his brother was working in the lumber company up in Reno. And after they became argumentative, or whatever you might call it, and Jim kept the flea market, and the other brother Tony stayed with the lumber business. They were both very successful.
Well, that modest backgrounds, you know. One of the other community members that you mentioned that was really helpful was Morris Hoffman from Hoffman Liquor.
Morris Hoffman was very kind to veterans from World War I. He would always, they needed money, he'd come in and find out how much they needed and give them a loan or give them, just pay them money to get by.
And he owned the store at the corner of Ferry and Main Street, right?
At the corner
Was it
Hoffman's cigar store?
a cigar store?
They used to make cigars there, yeah.
Really, in the back?
Yeah,
And
right. That was his father had the business there.
Huh.
Yeah.
So he kept that for a long time, didn't he?
He did, right up until just before he died.
Mm-hmm.
He had to sell it, but he was a very kind person to people, especially if they were veterans from World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of them. Somebody would refer them to him if they were broken. They needed a handout. He'd go help them out. Yeah.
Just another way that Martinez was so good to its community
that's
members.
One way looking at it, they were people knew each other and they knew whether you were trustworthy, and I think that's the big thing. We had a lot of help when I worked for the police department. If we wanted any information, we would go to the cab drivers or we'd go to the telephone operators. A lot of the telephone operators listened in on the calls, and if we were looking for somebody, we'd go down there and find out what they heard or who was doing what. The same with cab drivers. They're always driving that car, and they'd come and tell you if they seen something out of line, or you'd go and tell them what the trouble was. I don't think they ever had a bank robbery when I was a kid, and then they had some later, but when I worked there, we never had any bank robberies. It seemed like it was out-of-town people that would cause problems, and they were easily spotted. If somebody saw them, they'd let you know. You just stop and talk to somebody you see. You knew even the fishermen, when they get up in the morning, go down to get in their boat, you'd ask them if they saw anything going on, and it would quite helpful. I remember Hershey's Electric had a break-in one night, and I just seen the lights on in a house across the street, and I asked them what happened. They said it was two kids broke the window, and then they jumped out they told me which way they were going. So I thought to myself, well, they're going towards Mountain View. They were troublemakers, you know. So I went out with the flashlight and hid on top of Mountain View at Pacheco Boulevard, and I could hear them talking. I was very quiet that night, and I told them, where did you put all that stuff you just stole? And they took me right down to, they'd hid it underneath the bridge from where Fred Spears had his old wrecking yard there on Ferry Street. The chief thought that was great.
They were probably so surprised that you came upon them.
Well,
And
yeah, they were all surprised. How did I know?
yeah.
So, you knew the people that would cause trouble, you know, that were worried about which direction they went when you were able to figure out which way they went.
How did you come upon joining the Martinez Police? How old were you? What got you into the police force?
After the war was over, I worked for my dad, but we couldn't get any material to build houses. So my dad had to shut down. Sheetrock was hard to get in those days, and I thought, well, I'll find a job. And then Bill Reeder had passed away. I could see the funeral going down the street there one day, so I went down and talked to the chief and told him I was looking for work. And he says, you want to work in the police department? I said, I didn't get it. Kind of work you got. And so he put me out there in Vine Hill, Fairview.
Oh, so you really knew that community because that's where you were stationed.
He says, you can work out there. He gave me a stopwatch and clock to measure how many cars were coming in and out of town. I thought it's a funny thing to do for a policeman.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work for about a week. Then I asked him if he had any more work, and he said, yeah. And he says, come down and take the exam. At that time, they just transferred over to the civil service where you could get, you'd have to have taken a written exam to pass. So, but the thing of it was, you had to live in the city a year before you could apply.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they'd know what you were like and how you were working in the town.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve says, well, you just go ahead and I'll put you on per diem for 1 year. I worked per diem, and they paid me. And as soon as my time was up, I took the exam and passed it all right. Went to work for the police department.
So I want to back up just a little bit because you mentioned after the war. And I know during World War II you worked in the Richmond shipyards.
Yes, I did. I worked in there. After the arsenal wasn't paying too good, so I went up to Camp Stoneman.
Oh.
They were building that track.
Out in Pittsburgh,
Yeah, they were building it for the soldiers that were going overseas. So I went up there and went to work for a while, and then I seen that Richmond, a lot of the guys from Martinez were working in the private industry, and they wanted to get into government jobs. So I thought, well, I'll see if I can find, after the war's over, I can get a job that has a little pension to it. So I went to work for a trucking company.
In Richmond for the...
From Richmond. And while I was down there, I found out that the shipyards were paying a little bit. I think they paid 99 cents an hour. So I transferred over to working in the shipyard, and I worked there until I became a foreman.
And that was during the war?
During the war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What were your responsibilities?
Well, I had worked on the outfitting dock, and I worked in the warehouses, so I began to learn all the material, where everything was, and they'd give me a job expediting. People come in with an order for something, and I knew what warehouse or where it was stored, and they just come call me and give me the job. So I thought, well, at the time I quit the warehouse and went to work as a Teamster. Earl Carter was the head of the Teamsters Union. I went to school with his daughter. So they told me, come down So I went to work driving truck for them, and stayed until the war was over.
And then came into Martinez and joined the police force at that point.
Yeah, well, after the war was over, I worked for my dad, who was building houses all around Martinez. And we couldn't get no material because it was hard to buy. You had to have a permit to get material. So my dad had to shut down. So I seen old Bill Reeder had passed away, and he was having a funeral. I seen him go down. I went downtown and talked to the chief. Told him I was looking for work. He told me to come to work.
And who was Bill Reeder?
Bill Reeder was the constable.
Oh, so the police chief, or?
Me. Bill Reeder was, his father was what we call a door shaker. At night, he'd go around and shake the doors to see if there's any burglaries going on or keep an eye open.
Oh, for the businesses? He'd go around to the businesses?
And his son worked for the police department.
Oh, okay. So that's how, that's the one who got you the job. Okay.
Managed to take his place.
So you worked for the police department for how long?
6 years.
6 years. And then is that when you met your wife too? Is that when you met Bunny?
Yes.
And how did you meet her?
I was up at Clear Lake at Peter Motto's place. He had a cabin up there, and she was visiting with a neighbor, and they were going to dance up there, so we decided to go over to that dance too. And we just bumped into each other.
Rest is history, huh?
65 years we were married.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You don't get to find somebody like that every day.
No, she was a wonderful person.
She was a wonderful person, I know. So you ended up working for quite a long time for the sheriff's department, right, in the patrol boats. But before that, you were in the radio.
Well, when I left to Martinez Police, Aljets was the undersheriff, and I was standing out there at the corner of Alhambra Avenue and Alhambra Way, and Aljets stopped and told me, he said, I understand you took the exam, and I said, yeah. He says, we need some guys down at the office. And he says, that thing, if you don't take it, it's going to run out. The time's up on it. So I thought about it, and I thought I was tired of riding that motorcycle around Martinez all the time for, just.
That's what you rode in the police, when you were a policeman, you rode a motorcycle?
Yeah, riding a motorcycle.
Oh, wow.
And I decided I'd find a better way to make a living. So I transferred over because the city was only paying, I think, $2.25 a month. And we worked 6 days a week, and the sheriff's office was paying better than that, and they were working 5 days.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
So I just transferred over that afternoon. I went in and told the chief that night I was leaving. I was going to work for the sheriff's office, and he got mad. He said, Sheriff Long thinks I'm running a training academy here, and all the guys quit and going to work for the sheriff's office. I said, well, that's up to you. I'm leaving. Here's my gun. Goodbye.
Here's my gun and my motorcycle. I'm gone.
And he gave it back to him.
That's funny. So you went into the radio at that time?
I thought I was going to be on patrol, but they put me in radio, and it was George Burton. That was he was one of the guys that put the first one-way radio up on top of Mount Diablo for transmitting the calls. I think it was KMA 371 was our old call letters, and before they had just a little station across the street from the old city hall, and it wouldn't reach very far. In those days, it had to be a matter of no obstacles, but up on Diablo, we could get good reception.
Because it was county-wide, right?
Well, and they had it. Burton did put in quite a few places of special antennas that made the better communication.
Transmission.
I worked there in the radio for I forgot now how many years I worked there when I was working in the radio, we had learned how to operate the teletype machines, and they learned all of the departments. At those days, they didn't have a lot of counties like Antioch, Walnut Creek, and Pittsburgh didn't have anything that would shut down at night. They shut the door, but they were connected with our radio room. So we'd take their calls. They'd switch the messages over to the county, and then it was kind of hectic for a while.
Yeah, I would
I
imagine.
remember one person called in when I told it was on Arlington. I thought it was Arlington Street in Martinez. That was on Arlington and Richmond.
Oh, so you didn't know what city even.
I thought old Sheriff Long was going to can me. He didn't say nothing in the morning when he came in.
Did you work the night shift? Were you
Yeah,
working?
mostly the night shift, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a little hectic because you're fielding calls from every city.
The guys, where they broke you in, they said, here's the radio, and that's the set. And you went home. So you had to get out. I had 2 or 3 books I had to read at the same time. My brother was working there because he was, during the war, he was a radio operator on the ships that goes to the Orient. And when he came back, he went to work down there in Fresno, Fortier Trucking Company. And I told him, I called him up and told him they had an opening up here if he wanted to try to come up and do it. So he did come up, and took the exam, took the job.
So you both worked there at the same time?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, he was working in the radio room, and I was out on patrol.
Oh, okay.
At that time.
I see.
But
So-
when I first broke in, he helped me at night, tell me how to, work the switchboard and
Sure.
all the rest of the stuff.
So you had that
Yeah,
experience.
he had a lot of experience.
Wow, that was
Working
helpful.
on ships, yeah.
So then when did you transfer out of the radio room and onto the patrol boat? Because you spent a lot of years on the patrol boat, which they named one after you, I know.
Well, it was the 6 years after I left Martinez. I started there, and then I can't remember exactly.
What was it? What were your duties on the patrol boat? That was
Well,
you did that a long
The
time.
boat, when I started out, was mostly just looking for people that were had drowned,
Oh.
or to recover their bodies. But I began taking a class. I went to the Coast Guard Auxiliary and took all their classes, and I went to the Power Squadron and took their classes, and I got a license for carrying passengers. But I was asked to work for the mosquito abatement control. So if you did work for another outfit, you had to have a license. So I did get the license, and I don't know, after that I started getting with the auxiliary units and finding out a lot of them. We only had one set of rules that we were trying to apply to all of the different counties. So we got the state to get into it. The small craft harbors came in, and we got together with them. We put a thing on the board, and they took over, and they have one set of rules for the entire state. They've got the boat registrations, and they've got the, well, that's one way. They did get to collect a little more money because they used to be able, when you bought gas for your boat, you could take the receipt and bring it in and get paid for the amount of gas that wasn't used on the highway. So you get the gas cheaper. But when the state took it over, they took all they could get out of it, and they got everything they could get. And they started up a uniform program for educating people. But before that, they didn't have any. The Power Squadron came in, and I set up a couple of classes for the Coast Guard boats, because they were going to locate in Martinez, but the Martinez wanted to charge them too much for the yacht harbor. So they went up to Davis, or I can't think of the other side of Antioch, set it up there.
So you got up when you were on your patrol boat, were you on the boat every day?
Yeah.
Then you just go down and so what was a regular day like for you?
I'd get up early in the morning, and I drive my own car up to Antioch to get the boat because most of the boating was going on in the Delta.
Okay, so
We
that's where
had-
you spent most of
Yeah,
your time.
we were boarding about 7 counties on the water, and all of the people that had speedboats would come and boat in the water. Would come up to the Delta.
Mm-hmm.
Those days fishing was terrific up there in the Delta. Frank's Track, I think it flooded in 1937, and that was where the winter time the bass would come up to spawn, and a lot of Japanese people would come up to Bethel Island to fish. They were good fishermen, and they just knew how to fish. And then that kind of petered out, and water skiing became popular. And pretty soon the Delta was full of boats. We had boats everywhere you look. In fact, you're afraid to go through an intersection, you get rammed.
Really? So it got really busy, and you were basically the patrol for the
Right.
waterways.
Yes, so I tried to set up they named me the engineering conductor on the river. So I put in directional signs where people were getting lost at night or having trouble. So they put in pilings at different places wherever I recommended them.
Did you have to go on any rescues?
Well, we did. They'd call me at night quite often until we got our signs up. Now the signs helped because before I was going out once a week at least, and people call up, their children went out and they didn't come home, and they thought sure they were drowned out there. The only thing, most of them had gotten lost or run out of gas or something, and you'd go out and find them.
Back in the little waterways.
In the wintertime, they'd drowned up there. They think they can swim, but when the water drops, the temperature drops down to the 30s, and they don't last more than a few minutes if they fall in that water. You've got a wetsuit on, and we did a lot of search. I started a reserve group that would help me search for people that were lost. A lot of people were very good donating their time, the divers and people that own their own private boats. So if we had a flood and we had to evacuate some of the islands up there, I'd call them and they'd come up and work with me. I had one fellow work with me for about 10 years, and Russ Wright was his name, but he came from a place back in Arkansas, but he liked to hang around the water. So he'd, come down, and first time I called him, I was in the boat down to Crockett. He was at Martinez waiting for me. So I told him, well, you come down there tomorrow morning and you can come out with me. He stayed with me on the boat all the time because he used to work out at the old racetrack at Pacheco, and he didn't get paid, but he liked to work with cars and motors. But when he found out that there was a job on the boat, he stayed right with me. And I taught him how to run the boat, and he was a good mechanic. He could help me, if I had any trouble. He was a very helpful guy. Fortunately, he had a heart attack and died. I missed him quite a bit.
I bet, yeah. So you were rescued. There was flooding going on because all those islands up there are so inside the Delta.
We'd have a problem when they'd have a big flood from up in the north when there was this big snow.
Sure, snow melt coming down.
About 2 feet, and it would be cold, and the water. In fact, you'd get ice on your face and hands almost. Trying to go in a small boat. But we got bigger boats that would give us more power to pull bigger boats up when they're on the rocks or aground and stuff. And it made it a lot easier. It was a lot of work.
I bet it was a lot of work, yeah. Every day would be a little different. You never knew what to expect, right?
Every day was different, that's true.
So you were instrumental in setting up a lot of the safety.
I did get the Coast Guard to put in the district where they come up. They didn't have any Coast Guard patrol boats up in the Delta at the time, But I think it was a Captain Brown in the San Francisco office at 630 Ward Street or whatever it was in the city. I'd call him up and tell him we needed help. And they set up a deal where they come up and check the boats at the harbors. They'd send a boating crew and they'd check the boats to see if they had the proper equipment and if the people knew what they were doing, knew the laws. Most people didn't know the one part of the river from the other.
Right.
A river on the big ships coming up the river, it was it's a very narrow slough that's dug from Antioch well, and even closer near Port Chicago, it's where the ships have to remain in that little narrow slough they got. It's water is about 20 feet deep, but when it gets shallower on either side, they can't move. So if they got somebody fishing in their line, they have a set of buoys marking the left and right side of the channel. And if they don't obey it, then they're going to cause that ship to go aground or something. So we'd have to go to clean the shallow out. I'd ride up with them sometime on their big ships so I could see what problems they were having. I used to go down and meet them, talk to some of the captains, and they'd tell me where to take care of them. We'd go out and take people off their boats if they got injured when they were coming in. And, pull up alongside of them while the ship was moving.
Well, there wasn't a lot of room to maneuver because you had the deeper channel for the big ships, and then the other boats, didn't allow for a lot of.
The small boat is not allowed to go into that deep water.
Right.
Right. But the guys didn't know any better to go out there and throw their anchor out.
Yeah, kind of a moving target all the time, wasn't it?
Well, it was an interesting job,
Yeah, I bet. Did you work? Is that where you worked until you retired?
Yes. The whole way from Point Richmond down there all the way up to Big Break. Well, that's above Bethel Island. That was our jurisdiction. Then we'd go south down to that little island down there, Clifton Court.
So what year did you retire from the?
78, I retired from the job.
And how did you fill your days after that? You don't seem like somebody who would just sit around.
I got tired of going to Delta. I still like to go in the ocean.
Yeah.
To go fishing, but you look at that river every day for 25 years and you've seen enough.
Yeah.
So I'd go out in the ocean, salmon fishing.
Oh.
Just enjoy myself.
That was your recreational.
I had a lot of, with the friends I had, Jim and I was always calling me up, wanting me to go down to Arizona with him to give him a hand on this work. He was kept open in business. And, he needs some help, to drive a truck.
Now, I know you have one son, Sean.
Yes.
Right. And I'd just like you to talk, as we kind of wrap it up, I'd like you to talk a little bit about how it was to raise Sean in Martinez, as a son, and you're growing up in Martinez. Do you see similarities, differences? What were the two different time periods like?
Well, it was entirely different. Martinez had grown up to be a big city from just a little town, and I wanted him to become an electrical engineer, but he wasn't interested. Jim and his wife gave him a microscope, and then we went down to Disneyland, and he saw the inside of a molecule, was looking at a DNA, was interested in that. So he went on to Cal and got his degree there. He went to the Air Force Academy, but he said he's 6'4", and they couldn't fly. They were going to put him in one of those rockets, and go into the ground. He said, I don't want to go under nothing. So he decided he was going to go to Cal. Well, he just put his papers in, but he graduated with honors at Alhambra. So he just went down, put his papers in when he came home on vacation, and they accepted him. He didn't tell me about it until it was called me up and told him and the captain and the academy, they are allowed 2 years. And that I says, well, you at least got to finish out your time while you're there. So he did that and went to Cal and got a master's degree out of Cal.
And do you think that for him growing up in Martinez was just as good a community experience as it was for you? Do you feel that way?
Yes, I do, because he's got friends that this day that they're very close friends.
That he grew up with here.
One kid next door went to Stanford, and the other kid down the street, he went to Stanford. And Gary, that his father had a trucking business, him and Sean, they're always together, doing things. So I think Martinez was a great town to live in. It's a common thread among the generations, isn't it? I think it's one thing, it's a small town, and I think people that just arrived here can feel the difference. I couldn't stand to live in San Francisco, and I don't think people over there would stand it. It's just a matter of what you're accustomed to. Martinez, you could go downtown, and if you forgot your wallet or something, you could get a ride home, or you could get somebody to help you. If you go to San Francisco, they'd probably put you in jail if you ask somebody for something. Well, it's true. It's a common thread in a lot of these interviews that we do for people who feel that way about Martinez. And even if you weren't born here, you came when you were 4, and so you grew up here. But it is a testament to this community. We have some of the nicest teacher, Carl Drexel, our gym teacher in high school. And I wanted to play football, but I couldn't. He told me that I had to attend practice while I was janitor at the school, and I thought, what can you do? I have to not play. So he says, well, you can box, you can fight. I said, yeah, well, so he gave me a job there practicing in the gym classes that we take, boxing. I did pretty good. I won the final match. You box between your classes, then you box on the final night. We call it Father's Night. And I did win that fight at that time, and I had a little brass medal they give you with a boxing glove. I remember it made me feel good anyway. Yeah, so people looked out for each other and helped each other. Mrs. Sullivan was another fine teacher. She was always asking me how I was doing, and I wasn't doing too good. And I got in her class, and she says, I want you to bring your report card to me. So I brought it in, and she says, you should be doing better than that. And I went from practically D's to A's, and I was, thanks to her, she was very helpful to me. I hope to see her when I come home after the war, but I went to see her, and she passed away. Well, she made a good impression on you that lasted your whole life, right? Do you have any kind of last words that you'd like to tell people about your life or this town or things that you've learned? I'm glad my dad did finally come to Martinez. And I'm glad he didn't move into some big city, where you wouldn't have that kind of communication you get when you get in a small town. I learned I'd walk all the way from my house in Mountain View to Clyde and all over hunting and different families and people that I met. And I always found them to be very kind and very helpful. And you've maintained a lot of those friendships to this day, huh? Yes, I have. You have. Most of them, unfortunately, when you get to be 83, they're pretty well gone. Yeah, most of your friends. Well, you're 93 now, and you're, 93 is right. It's just the time flies, but isn't it? Real close friends, the closest friends have been with, like, I think more friends in Ireland now than I do in America. My mother and father. Well, you've had an incredibly rich life, and you've contributed a lot to this community, which is really a nice testament. I think they contributed to me more than anything, Martinez is a kind of a town that if I was parent of a big family. That's where I'd want to live. You know, it's a pretty pleasant place to live.
Well, I appreciate your time with us today. Thank you,
Okay.
John.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.